You're stuck on a desert island, you can only train with one piece of kit for the rest of your life. What do you choose? For me, it's the closed loop band. I particularly recommend the Super Mini. You don't need a ton of resistance for a lot of exercises if you know how to leverage the body. And today I'm going to go through 10 exercises that are going to train your hips through a variety of functions. We're going to hit your hip flexors, your adductors, you rotate a cuff of your hip, but we're also going to smash the glute max as well. So a little bit of booty building while we're stuck in quarantine. So the primary function of the glutes is hip extension, particularly from a unilateral stance, so on one leg. And that's what we're going to train here. I've got 3 of my favorite exercises to train that regardless of what kit you have available. And we're also going to train an additional function as well, which is a little bit of pelvic rotation, because we're going to be kind of lunging forward and rotating our hip forward to reach with the opposite leg. So we just need an attachment point. So here, loop it round, and then I'm going to step into the band and place it behind my knee, get a little bit of tension on it, and basically from here I'm going to do a little bit of a reverse lunge. I'm going to set up a little bit like a sprinter out of the block, so opposite hand, opposite leg backwards. I'm going to drive up onto the block here, so I'm just using a garden chair. So lunging back and driving up. Now here you're putting pressure back into the band with the knee. You're not locking it out and going soft, you're keeping tension on. You're using your calf as well to get your hips up into a high position. You're rotating your pelvis forwards to reach for the chair, which is why it's here. You're cueing height and you're cueing a reach. So big explosive movement out of the blocks. A little bit of rotation of my torso towards the leg that's coming forward. Now, second option, you might want to use a slightly higher attachment point, but it's okay for this purposes. So, split stance, I'm going to let the band pull forwards, and I'm going to hinge into this Superman position. I call this the Superman row. One long line, so my right arm, right leg, creating a nice long line, and then I'm going to pull in, and again end up in a similar position to the previous exercise. Reaching nice long line, maintaining balance, nice and slow, rotating towards the lead leg with this leg in extension, and trying not to lean back. Immediately my glutes lost all tension. If I pull high with my knee pulled back, loads of tension on the glutes. One more exercise. This time we're going to face away from the attachment. We're going to have the band around our ankle. Same sort of setup, same sort of goal. Good boy. So you're going to be, again, thinking sprinter out the blocks. You're going to drive up tall, drive that leg forward. Again, you're cueing the pelvis to rotate with this leg coming forward. This hip's going to overdrive to keep you in extension. Rotate towards that leg coming up. Obviously, you're also going to smash your hip flexor with that one as well. Great exercises. If we want to train the glutes in a functional manner, we need to integrate them with muscles that naturally interact with the glute. So if I want to train my left-sided glute, I'm going to have some exercises that are going to incorporate the right side lat or the right side hip flexor. This is one that, as we build it up, can do both. So we're going to set it up, and the main thing we want to look at is the end position, because that's going to be the same with both exercises, but the setup's going to be slightly different for the static versus the dynamic variation. So for the static variation, I'm going to have the same foot forward as the side that's holding the band. I'm going to drive my feet in opposite directions, trying to spread the floor to pre-engage this glute. And here I'm going to do a row. I'm going to get a bit of pre-tension on the lat. I'm going to squat down. I'm going to row and rotate as I stand up. If I've got the lat involved, my hip flexor here is pushing the ground forward. My glute contracts, even though there's no direct resistance on it, like so. If we're doing the dynamic version, we want to step with the other foot forward. We want to dig down with this back leg, and we're going to use the hip flexor here to pull off. We're going to connect with the lat on this side again, and as we row, same end position, but now we're actively trying to find hip extension. We're keeping the weight mostly forward in this leg, and we're just reaching back with that leg. So I'm not placing my heel down or going soft. I'm staying up nice and tall, keeping the hips high, and stepping back to that position. Bit of rotation again, as that's the best way to fire the glutes in an integrated manner. So now we're going to train hip extension from a bilateral stance, so on 2 feet. And we're also going to integrate the calves and the quads, and we're primarily really going to get the muscles on the back side of your body working with the muscles on the front side of the body. This is a very intense exercise. You don't need a lot of resistance, but feel free to try. So, again, got the band attached somewhere secure. I'm going to take one in each hand. I'm going to walk on, very little resistance here. And what I'm going to do is just pull myself down into a little bit of a squat to set it up. And then from here, I'm going to drive my knees forward, come up onto my toes, and then drive up. And I've used way too much tension. So really don't need a lot here. Scoop the knees under, drive up, nice and tall, staying up on my toes, as high a position as I can possibly reach, and back down. It's going to teach you how to leverage your body in terms of balance. And like I said, it's going to hit a ton of muscles, including your glutes. If you get it wrong, it'll pull you forwards, you'll fall over backwards. If you get it absolutely right, you can hold that tall position at the end. And as I say, it's going to get the front side and your back side of your body connecting. Going to make all sorts of muscle connections with that one. So one of the functions of the glutes is hip abduction. So normally you'll see people training it by doing something along these lines, but in terms of operating within a gait cycle scenario, it's actually more like keeping your hip into the center of your body rather than letting it drop out to the side. So 3 exercises that we can train that position with. So 1, foot around the band, take the band on the hand on the same side, and we're going to do a hip hike. So what we're going to do is press up, and we're trying to create this really long line from your hand down to your foot. My glutes are really squeeze to create this position. We can do reps, and we can do slight holds at the top of the position. Other variations, to train hip abduction, you need an attachment point, step into the band, pull it onto your hip nice and high, and you can see this is going to pull you into that compensation pattern, and you are going to resist it. Now you can come onto one leg for an extra challenge, and if you want to take it even further, you can then rotate. Again, you can do reps like this, and very quickly you can really feel the glute, particularly the lateral glute, your glute med, really start to burn. Another variation, and this one's going to get your hip flexor involved as well. You step on the band, step on it twice, pull it up over the other leg, and then what we're going to do is just drive up into hip flexion. You should see that as I raise this knee, this hip pulls into abduction. So again, straight away, really strong sensation of the glute. You can add to it again by rotating the upper body. You're going to really feel the full squeeze of those glute fibers. Now we're going to train the glute through some rotation, and we're also going to incorporate the adductors into this exercise. As with many of the others as well, we're also going to work the obliques. So I'm going to take my band on the attachment. I'm going to have a staggered stance with the far foot out behind the near leg. I'm going to hold the band here, and I'm going to turn my torso towards it. From now we've got a little bit of a sequence in terms of what we're trying to do. So I'm going to pivot the outside foot. So I'm going to create a stretch on my adductor. It's going to pull my obliques. My weight's through this foot, and I'm going to push off and towards the other foot and wrap around my body. Now here, my weight shifts onto my front foot, but I'm still connecting hard through the ground here to keep that glute in extension. So we're training the rotation on this leg, but at the end position, I'm also really squeezing hard into the ground to keep stability. So we're also training just hip extension, like this. So sequence, rotate the leg, and the other foot follows. You need to shift your weight from one foot to the other so that you can create enough space for your foot to rotate, okay? So if you keep your weight too much on one leg, you'll end up twisting like that. You get a load of force through your knee that you don't really want. So rotate this leg, put the weight through that foot, and then rotate the other leg, like so. Great way of training rotation, so we can get really dynamic with it, and you can train, obviously, the glutes, but it's also a nice way of training powerful rotation that can transfer to all sorts of different sports. This last exercise is going to train your glutes through extension again, combined with a real stimulus in terms of thoracic rotation. So exactly the way that you would see in a gait cycle, as you extend your hip, you're going to rotate your thoracic spine and your rib cage. So the way we're going to really work on that is I'm going to loop the band over your shoulder. I'm going to pull a fair bit of slack out of it, and then wrap around my body, and then step into it. A little bit inelegant, but you get the point. And here you can see it's going to pull me into this level of rotation. So if I resist and pull back to neutral, or even further rotate the other way, there's a huge stimulus in terms of all the muscles that contribute to rotation. So from here, I'm going to get down on all fours, hands on the ground, and I'm going to lift up the side that is difficult to open up on. So from here, I'm going to rotate on this side, so my right shoulder's lifting up. I'm just going to kick back with my left leg. Now typically, I'm going to suggest that you just kick back along the floor rather than up into the air, because most people, as you rotate and kick up, you're going to get an arching in your lower back. If you kick back along the ground, more likely just to stay in extension rather than hyperextension. Again, the resistance isn't necessarily on the glute there, but as we're working the thoracic rotation and you're creating this length and reach through the glute, you're still going to feel your glutes. As with a lot of these exercises, the better you get at them, the more you're going to feel, because you're creating better connections with your muscles. So if you're not feeling it, it's probably something you need to work on. There you have it, 10 exercise options to train your glutes with nothing but a band and an attachment point. But it's not just about training your glutes or your hips. There's tons of different functions in there because they're integrated. You're going to hit your lats, you're going to mobilize your T-spine, you're going to work your obliques through rotation. And that's really the basis behind functional movement training. Now, a lot of these exercises are inspired by or created by functional patterns, and some of them are take principles from Franz Bosch in terms of hip block, in terms of keeping your hips high during a gait cycle. So if you want to learn more about why those exercises are so beneficial for the body and for performance, then check out those two sources.